D&D Conversation brought to you by Cascadia Gamers Alliance. I'm your host, Brendan Faulkner. With me is my co-host,
Kyle Morton.
Hey Kyle, start the show.
You got it.
We talked about a little bit of how making a narrow backstory can be kind of game breaking.
Yeah.
We talked about how not or having a bad reaction to having to improv can be kind of game breaking. Having to deal with kind of stubborn players can be kind of game breaking. I think those are kind of the big issues at the table. So I think
okay. I want to touch on that.
Sure.
Stubborn players.
Okay.
Because you're gonna have them. I mean, you were one.
Yes.
That was very much a thing. And so, at what point does it get to the point where you are now breaking the game as it is, and something needs to be done, either out of the game or maybe the DM has to really tell you, "Hey, this just happened." It's like, "Whoa, that's really epic." Well, yeah, this needs to end. How would you deal with a you basically as DMing?
Sure. So the rule is cool. If it's cool and it's enjoyable for everybody at the table,
okay,
then it flies. If it's not cool, then it's gonna get punished a little.
Okay.
And hopefully in a funny way or in a way that makes everybody kind of feel cool with this moment happening.
Sure.
But not in a way where I'm telling you that you're playing your character bad or that you don't know the rules or or somebody's rule lawyering. It's well, this is fun, so we're going to keep doing it this way.
Well, actually, yeah, okay. That I can totally see that because, you even said that when you were doing the whole Muscoozy thing into the door, the members of the other party were like,
right.
"Yeah, I'm gonna be right in there with." Yeah. But I'm sure if the others, would you have as the player, if the others weren't so supportive, would you have pushed it as hard?
It depends. Okay, so if I think that I can surprise them with the end result being funny or entertaining, then I might push a joke or a situation like that a little bit, but I'm not going to do it in such a way where everybody's just oh god, that's terrible.
Right.
It's a little bit reading the room.
Okay, seriously, that was the punchline?
Yeah.
We're never letting you tell a joke again. Sorry.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, that's understandable. So then, I don't know how I would deal with that. Mm-hmm. If I was a DM and because I feel like I can pretty typically read a room.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm fairly good at understanding the overall, I guess, likability of the people around me.
I mean, part of it is recognizing as a DM that you've been kind of lazy, right? So if you've been lazy enough to put all of your eggs in one basket, you need to improvise on the fly that those eggs aren't actually in that basket. We kind of touched on that.
Yeah, it's oh, just kidding. That's actually further down the road.
For instance, a friend of mine gave his players this pickaxe that could basically mine through any stone all the time.
It's like a diamond pickaxe.
Yeah, pretty much.
For Minecraft.
A Minecraft diamond pickaxe.
Yeah.
And he got them into a underground lair, and they're like, well, I'm just gonna mine to the right and just keep going. So
freaking digging for obsidian? Come on now.
Yeah, and in his mind, the labyrinth was set out in a particular way. It wasn't in that particular direction, so they just didn't run into it. I think that's a mistake. I think that he put all of his eggs in one basket by deciding beforehand where the labyrinth was.
Yeah.
So at that point, you just have to say, okay, you run in through wall X over here in the mine, and it's just set up in a slightly different way.
Yep.
And that's about improvisation and not having your world quite so linear and stuck in one place.
Right, and that's why you never show the whole map.
I mean, even if they had access to the map, I mean, I would still say,
you weren't quite sure.
Maybe you didn't run into that mine shaft, but there was a secret one, and there's a bigger boss that you just ran into. Like,
or perhaps like, well, you're not particularly good at mining, so although you thought you were going in a straight line, you were actually curving slightly and did eventually make it to this wall right here.
sure.
Like, I'm sure there's a lot of ways to like kind of railroad them back. Sure, you just made an extra exit now, great, but you're still where I need you to be.
Yeah.
I think that's definitely part of. Like, there can't be an overly amount of rigidity in a DM's guide.
Save your resources as well. If you design a trap that they get around, that trap shows up somewhere else.
Mm-hmm.
That's really, really all there is to it.
I totally did that.
Yeah.
When I one-shotted.
Yeah.
I forgot that I trapped a door. And so, instead, I moved the trap to the chest that was inside the room. It's like, oh, perfect. And it actually worked out way better because it was able to AoE like 3 of them and they all had to make saves.
Yeah.
It was great. So it was a little bit, it played out better. So oftentimes the improv actually goes, hey, improv is not always bad. In fact, it's almost always an improvement. Oh, that was bad. I'm sorry.
Dad jokes all day.
That was really bad. I'm sorry. I'm done.
Yeah.
Maybe. But it's like, yeah. So it's most definitely that I like that concept of being able to just not be so rigid in your DM style.
Yeah. You have to be flexible.
So, like, I mean, how as a player though, like, if I were to try and like, but see, that goes on my play style too. Like,
sure.
I wanted to touch on this earlier, but it didn't really fit at the time. But this is a perfect opportunity. So, like, I am probably a DM's ideal player.
Okay.
Because if there is an obvious path that we should take, I'm gonna be on it.
Yeah.
Like, I don't want to vary because I like the plan. Mm-hmm. I like that there's a direction that we really need to go.
Yeah.
He's giving me clairvoyance for free right now. Come on, guys. Like, we don't need to do any of that extra stuff. Why are you trying to go that way? What did he say was over there? Oh, he didn't? Go that way. So, like... But I also am on the same side of wanting to make sure I'm not missing things. And sure, they might not say that there's this house that has some relic that could definitely help us through the next pot.
Yeah.
And
as I'll say, as a DM, it's hard to deal with completionist players. It is. It can be because it makes it harder for you to reuse your stuff or to like hide where certain things are or what your flexibility is.
Yeah, if you play Pokemon and go into every single house and talk to every single person, you probably should not play D&D. Just saying.
It is a little rough. It's not the worst thing that can happen. It will probably mean that my world falls flat compared to what the designed experiences were. Right,
or maybe just that town. Maybe that town happens to be stupid boring, and it prevents them from trying to do it later, allowing the story to unfold as intended.
I mean, so I will, like, I do have things in my pocket, though, to use for cases like that, right? If the town is starting to fall flat, by the next session, there's going to be something weird about the town.
Yeah.
Like, okay, these are actually changelings, and you might go to the same doctor 3 days in a row. It's okay. It's okay, Michael.
That certainly wasn't a direct reference to you, I promise, because I knew nothing of this behavior. So you can't blame us. Okay, so I think we've gotten a pretty good coverage so far of, like, concepts and examples. I know that you had a couple other examples you wanted to touch on. So why don't we? You had mentioned a really interesting situation that somebody, I think it was Sam, that brought up, Zone of Truth.
Yeah.
And just how does one deal with what I think you mentioned was basically just a player who never trusted anybody, and just whenever a conversation started, Zone of Truth.
Yeah, pretty much. So. You create a magical zone that guards against deception in a 15-foot radius sphere. So it's already kind of a small area. 15-foot radius sphere, person has no compulsion to stay in that sphere.
Yeah, right? So none whatsoever.
There's my first tool as a DM.
Right.
Until the spell ends, a creature that enters the spell area for the first time on a turn or starts its turn there must make a charisma save. On a failed save, a creature cannot speak a deliberate lie. There's your second thing. They get to try to save against it. You know whether each creature succeeds or fails on its saving throw. An affected creature is aware of the spell and thus can avoid answering questions, so they can just be quiet if they want to.
Oh man, but that means any gesture of an answer, or does it specifically say spoken answers?
Yeah. So you can lie by omission very easily, and being able to kind of improvise that kind of dialogue is key for situations.
And it also says that they are aware that the spell is active.
So and there's another good tool. Just feign like offense. You're casting a spell. You
think
right now?
I would lie to you?
Yeah.
And then when the person says, "Yeah, are you lying to me right now?" It's like, absolutely not.
Yeah, it's a great way to shut that down.
Yeah, like, but I can totally understand. Like, at first glance, you're so compelled to, oh well, the intention of this person is to just never let anybody lie around him.
Yeah,
and it's very easy, I feel, to fall into that trap of just going with that.
Yeah,
when that's not at all rule is written. It can almost be exact, like you. My mind settled to what you just said, like 30 seconds later. It could be offensive.
Yeah,
like it could straight up be offensive if you're just constantly laying down a zone of truth. It's like, sorry, I don't trust anybody. It's like, what did I do to you? Yeah. Literal nothing, and that's why I don't trust you. And like I get the role play side of that, but as a DM, I would try to do everything in my power to counter their desire to do so, except when hinge and when necessary to do so. Yeah. Like, man, maybe people just like, I don't know. Is there any hard counter in rules that could like just be like, nope, sorry. Like all of a sudden, everywhere you go, everybody's wearing null magic charms.
Sure. Or just being able to cast a spell. I mean, the spell isn't actually all that strong.
Yeah, sure, but
there's definitely ways to counter it. There's definitely ways to creatively think your way around it.
Understand.
The thing is, then, like, you're in a place, especially where the character, if they're like supposed to be your quest giver, and maybe you want them to be lying to the players in general. Like, he had, I think, a queen who was secretly working for the bad guy or whatever, and he didn't want to lay all of his cards on the table at that point. It was too early. He wanted to go do some stuff and build a rapport with her first.
Yeah.
But here's Zone of Truth, and now here he is struggling with, like, well, if I don't answer, they're not going to trust me anymore, or if I am cagey about it, or if I feign offense, then they're, maybe not going to come back to this person. I want this person to be a focus.
Sure.
Having a figurehead, or having a quest giver, kind of take a step back and just improvising a new quest giver, it can be a solution, but it's also kind of a convoluted one, and I can understand why that's frustrating.
Yeah, like, I mean, sure, when you have the time to sit and really think about how to handle, like, I'm sure the first time it happened was probably what threw him through the biggest curveball.
Yeah,
it's like all of a sudden this main quest giver, who's you said she was like a handmaiden to the queen or something.
No, she was.
She was the. Oh, dude, why are you gonna be casting? Why is that even allowed by your laws?
Yeah,
like, for starters, like, you just literally cast a spell on the queen.
On the queen.
How did your guards not like tackle her?
Yeah.
Or the player?
Yeah.
Like, so those are like reflex responses, just as like the tradition of what a fantasy realm might produce.
And Sam's not here to defend himself.
Of course, I'm not saying like he's a he's a great he's awesome guy,
Yeah.
and I imagine I've played with him.
Yeah.
I have actively played in a campaign with him. He's a great player, but I haven't ever been around while he's DMing, so I obviously can't speak directly to it, so I'm not going to.
Yeah.
But just at a personal response, like, if I was one of the players, if I was one of the characters around this player,
Yeah.
and my character had any sense of morality,
Yeah.
in character, I'd have been like, how are you going to do that to the queen?
Yeah.
Like, I feel like even the players should have realistically had a problem with that.
Yeah. Some of like the I think there's a hesitancy to kind of jump in when you see a player acting in character, to like maybe say no to that player. Like you kind of like at least when I've been at the table, if somebody is like jumping in full barrel,
Mm-hmm.
like I don't know why I hesitate to like kind of block that, but I do.
I can understand, because it makes them feel like they might falsely correlate the fact that they're role playing with the negative encounter.
Yeah.
And I can understand that, but I think it's important as a like, you don't get mad at a video game when you die.
Yeah.
Like, that's just the mechanics of the game.
Yeah.
And the
I
rules.
mean, this would be more akin to like playing 2-player Skyrim somehow, and like the other person is just constantly like lockpicking in town and like stealing everything they can get their hands on. And
What?
like,
That's not how you play?
I mean that's a valid way to play through the game. But if you were playing in a good way,
Sure.
and they just had every Apple book, piece of whatever, just like stuffing their pockets every single second, it can be kind of difficult. But then if they start like that becomes kind of the key of their role play. Like it's just difficult in general to be around a static player. Like, I am going to be one way always, and that way is never chill.
Yeah, and like, when is that ever the real? Like, I get it. It's really hard to emulate something, without forgetting that there's other aspects to that character.
Yeah.
But I think any place in any role-playing situation, it always helps to like step back a minute and make sure that the actions you're taking in the role align with just how you design the character, right? So, or at least as a player. I mean, that's my take though. Like, is that like, I think some people might even just be scared to role play their character as they wrote it.
Yeah.
Because it might be drastically different than who they are as a person, or
it might not be as advantageous to getting every little inch out of the, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
So like people get hungry. They get, well, I guess more like they get thirsty, right? they get thirsty for like having a success or having like a crazy idea go off, or they get thirsty for kind of being the center of attention for a minute, or they get thirsty for like producing a desired effect, and they don't really think about their consequences. And that's not always their backstory. Sometimes it's their backstory, and that's okay. You can play a character like that every once in a while. But if you have like a lawful good person and they're kind of being a jerk most of the time, like, really though?
That's an interesting concept, because like, we even have right now in the campaign a player who wasn't quite a campaign that I'm in.
Are you back into?
Yes, okay. I did rejoin after everything settled and I kind of rethought about priorities. I did decide, and most recently, it was last Saturday, and let me tell you that it was definitely a positive overall experience.
Good.
So that's good, and a little heart to heart with the DM goes a long way.
True.
So there's a dragonborn paladin in a low magic, virtually, like, basically he was told up front by the DMs, like, yeah, you shouldn't do that, and here's why. And he goes, oh, okay, I'll revisit and rethink.
Yeah.
He shows up his first day as the Dragonborn Paladin.
Yeah.
So and entirely because of just the nature of the world. For starters, he's a Dragonborn in an area that has a hard enough time accepting orcs as proper people or proper entities.
Gotcha.
I made that mistake as starting as a half-orc in this campaign.
Yeah.
And I'm very grateful now that I'm just a dwarf.
Gotcha.
So, like, you get to the point where he is now experiencing a lot of the same struggles that I kind of did.
Right.
And I got through them because I felt like it was a challenge. But ultimately, that character died, and I'm like, okay, whatever. And so now, this new character is being forced to kind of, essentially, he might be feeling like his own game might have to break in order to continue playing either his character or the campaign as a different character.
Yeah.
So it's certainly an interesting concept there.
I mean, there's simple workarounds for stuff like that, though. Like, how to disguise. That's all you need. You know what I mean? Like, it's not super difficult to say, yes, I am this thing, but I'm also going to do kind of what's best for the party.
Sure.
Like, I think that just kind of the need to be ostracized comes out for players sometimes. And they're working out other, like, life issues in game. And it can be kind of rough. Like, you know, you want your decisions that you made to be valid. You want to be able to stick with them. You want to be able to play your character a certain way. But when it starts, like, being a conflict that maybe you're not even aware of, like, it's maybe kind of time to revisit for reasons that aren't necessarily even game related.
Thanks for listening to the podcast thus far. We are now going to move to a quick interview of Sam Leonard. He is an awesome newer player and has had a little bit of conversation about how he feels his game has been broken recently.
Hey guys, this is Brendan with the Sound Gaming Podcast. I am here doing an interview with Sam Leonard. He's one of our close friends of the podcast and of CGA. We are talking today about game breaking. We've been talking on the podcast for the past couple of days about what that kind of feels like. But before we get into that, we have just kind of a background question that we ask everybody who comes on the podcast.
All right.
Where did you kind of get your start with D&D?
My start with D&D would have to be relatively recently, about a year ago.
Okay.
Started working where I'm working now. Tarye was like, "Hey,
of course,
we D&D," and I'm
Yeah.
like, "Cool, I've always wanted to do that.
Yeah.
Let's give it a shot."
Yeah.
And then a month later, I was DM of our work table, and then got hooked up with CGA, and I've
Sure.
been doing one shots and absolutely loving it.
What made you want to make that transition from being a player into DMing?
For me, I think as a wannabe writer, as a creative type, the ability to build worlds and to structure a narrative, and have people play where I want things to live,
Sure,
is super exciting, and having that control to make things happen.
Yeah.
A bit of a god complex, maybe.
Yeah, no, I completely understand that. Definitely, for me, some ego does come into play. I'm not gonna even try to hide it. But I'll be completely honest with you. Like, part of the reason that we chose game breaking came off of our last conversation that we had together. And I was kind of just wondering, like, especially since you're kind of a new DM, you're kind of just getting into it. As far, like, we have some people who are 10-year veterans, 20 years of playing RPGs.
Experts, right?
I mean, I mean, expert is relative, but for you, what does it feel like when the game is broken? Like, what feelings do you associate with a moment where the game feels broken to you?
Frustration, and a little bit of heartbreak.
Sure.
It feels initially horrible when something that you thought was going to be epic and wonderful becomes, oh, by the way, here's this spell. Never mind all the work you just put in.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh well, okay, there goes any drama.
Yeah.
You know, the tension's gone, and now what?
Right.
You know? So it's definitely kind of a can initially be a punch in the gut when you see something that you worked on so hard to just poof.
Sure. So, like, when you're kind of gauging your feelings on it, like, how do you know? Like, can you give me a specific example of how you know, like, a certain scene was broken?
In my current campaign, I have a magical item, a cloak.
Sure.
That part of its mystery is what it does, where it comes from, what it means. And I just recently had a player whip out Identify.
Sure.
Level 1 spell
Uh-huh.
that, and rules is written, they know everything there is to know about this item.
Yeah.
Well, if my entire story hook, this chunk of the campaign, the drama, the tension, the conflict is the mystery of this item.
Yeah.
To instantly have that, like, tell me everything.
Sure.
Now, had I been a more experienced DM, I would have put forward at the beginning of my campaign that, hey, this rule doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
But I didn't, so my player had the expectation, rules is written, this is what it does. Sure. So I was left in that moment to decide, do I hit my player's expectations or my own?
Yeah. Do I wreck his game or do I wreck my game? I definitely relate to that feeling.
And that's frustrating to just, I don't want to do that to my players.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, it's not fun for me either.
Right.
But at the end of the day, for me, it's about the players.
Yeah.
And I'm the DM.
That's great.
I
That's
can
great.
do whatever it is I want to do.
Yeah.
I'll just figure something else out.
So I mean that is kind of the solution is to kind of apply humility and then improv around it. So coming off of that, were you able to work out a solution?
Yeah, I gave him most of the information.
Sure.
And I had that moment of, is this important enough to let it break my game?
Yeah.
And no, this secret doesn't have to be, I can get around this,
Right.
I can let this one go and write some other mystery.
Yeah.
So that's what I ended up doing. I gave them most of what they needed to know without giving away the end plot.
Sure.
Now, of course, I have to rewrite that story hook, that path.
Yeah.
But I should be able to do that.
Okay. So there's a lot of pitfalls and traps that go along with kind of just starting out as a DM. Have your players ever expressed to you that they thought the game was broken in the other way?
Yes. So it's been a growing process.
Right.
Where what I expect as a DM, or how I interpret rules as written, is not what the players expect.
Sure.
And I play with some people who've been playing for a number of years.
Yeah.
People who know the DM guide, people who know the player's handbook far better than I do.
Yeah.
So an example is, I had a scarecrow.
Yeah.
And it says as long as it's not moving, it is indistinguishable as a scarecrow. He cast Detect Good and Evil.
Yeah.
And I said, you don't detect nothing. It's indistinguishable.
Yeah.
And he's like, no, that's not how good and evil works. It's evil. I would know this. And I'm like, well, then how am I ever going to surprise you with an evil scarecrow? Or a mimic? Or I mean, there are so many things where the dynamic of this creature is that you don't know. There's no way to know until surprise.
Right.
But Good and Evil takes that away. So they were kind of, and because of what they knew or what I told them, they changed their play only to feel like I cheated them.
Oh, okay.
Like, if I'd have known that, I wouldn't have done these things, and we'd all had more fun. I only did that because you told me something that wasn't true.
Yeah.
Oh, well, that's my bad. Sorry, guys.
Sure.
But we retcon as much as we can, and at the end of the day, hey, let's take it offline. Let's talk about it.
Yeah.
And moving forward, how do we want to handle this in the future? And I've got a great group of players, so
that's key. That is key.
I wouldn't be where I am without them.
That's good, man.
Because they can, like you said, they can be upset or they can feel like the game broke because I did something.
Yeah.
And then tell me about it.
Sure.
And we move on.
Yeah. So kind of going forward, is there maybe a situation that you're planning where you have already changed it so that to avoid the pitfalls that you have already fallen in? Does that question make sense?
I think so.
Okay.
And, well, only I guess my answer makes sense.
Sure.
When I started, I didn't know how important a player handout document is. I was like, oh yes, I get that that's important, but we're just throwing into this. I'm new. How important could it be?
Yeah.
But moving forward, having that document that says, here's my expectations as a DM. Here's my expectations of you as a player. Here are certain game rules or spells or what have you, and here's how I handle them.
That's a very interesting statement.
Here's I don't like good and evil. I don't like identify, and I absolutely can't stand zone of truth.
Yeah.
I just
that's
they tend to be able to ruin other players' fun.
Okay.
So it'll be stated right up front. Hey, these rules or these spells work like this. Sure. That's the expectation.
I've never really taken that thought to kind of almost have a contract between you and your players, negotiating kind of the terms of D&D. That's actually a really interesting concept, and I think that's probably going to be something that I'm going to bring back up with Kyle again when we talk, because negotiation is such a key point of any relationship that you're in. Why wouldn't you have some of that when you're sitting down with a new group of players? So since I'm kind of learning about this from you, how did you go about crafting such a document? Were you just listing the things that you didn't like, or
I haven't crafted it as of yet, but I'm looking at things where it's okay, I've run into Zone of Truth a couple of times, and I've got that marked away that's going to be on my day zero contract. Identify some of these spells. Because it's about expectations.
Sure.
And I think that's where most players, as in people in general, have a hard time, is unmet expectations. I expected you to behave this way, and you didn't. I feel cheated.
Go and kind of do your cop duties.
That's it. My paladin, my table, turned the unholy. Well, we're currently in an undead part of my campaign.
Yeah.
Turn unholy has done me over 2 or 3 times because I have all these bad guys and now I don't.
Yeah.
What do I do as a DM? Do I run, non-undead
in
my undead campaign?
Yeah.
Well, no, because that just steals from my player. I chose a paladin so that I could turn the unholy. Yeah. That's something that I can do. If I never let them use that because it makes me angry or whatever, then I'm cheating that player. Why be anything?
Sure.
Oh, you're a Goliath barbarian. Well, I'm only ever going to use magic weapons, so your bonuses don't help you. I think that's a cheat as a DM.
Right.
So, while it frustrates me that my bad guys get turned and run away, I don't want to steal that fun from them.
Right.
Because it's cool when and then everybody runs away. As a player, that's cool as hell.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I mean, there might be something to that as well, of giving them fodder to throw their spells at, right? Maybe it's not just one item for them to identify. Maybe it's 10, or maybe you were in a situation where you have a bunch of undead, but they have, for some reason, celestial overlords that are using them like slaves. You can have creative workarounds for pretty much everything, but if you're wanting to kind of keep it simple, keep it low key, then negotiation is definitely kind of the way to go.
I think so.
All right, let's see. So, game breaking in terms of plot is hard to see happen. I think last time we were talking about maybe a quest giver kind of was you had a queen that you were dealing with.
Yes, I have an evil queen.
Sure. Let's maybe talk about some of that political game breakingness.
So I have an evil queen in my campaign, and it was supposed to be a slow reveal over time, and Zone of Truth comes out,
Sure.
and they identify the evil wizard nearly immediately.
Sure. And
Oh.
the evil wizard is working with the evil queen?
Working
Okay.
for the evil
Okay.
queen. So immediately, this huge plot hook is now right out in the open.
Sure.
And where do we go from there? Like, I've got, hey, you're supposed to do these 3 things before you get this information.
Sure.
Well, now you know it. My political hook is gone. Like, oh, there's no slow reveal that she's the evil queen.
Sure.
You know almost immediately.
Sure.
So kind of changing that. And
Yeah. So okay. So I guess where I was kind of going with this is did it change like any of the backstory for the country? Did you have to retcon on the fly? Like besides just the one plot hook, was there anything kind of in the bigger picture?
I think part of the problem was, and we talked about it a little bit last time we talked, was the idea that I hadn't written a whole lot of her backstory. I knew
Okay.
that she was evil. I knew that she was, motivated by something.
Okay.
And for the story, I didn't need to know right now.
Gotcha.
But all of a sudden, things changed instantly, and I was like, oh my gosh, she's evil, but now I don't know why.
Yeah.
So I need a good reason for her to be evil. I need some kind of plot device to not feel like I'm, I guess, not playing on the fly, but
Yeah.
like I need an answer now that makes sense.
Okay. Are there any tools that you've discovered maybe since we've been talking that can help you to have those things kind of filled in?
Talking to other DMs,
Yeah.
I gotta say that we sat down, we talked, and we
Yeah.
tossed around some ideas, and just having somebody who can step outside your campaign
Sure.
and say, hey, this sounds like it might work, or hey, I've played this other campaign, have you thought about something like this?
Yeah.
No, that had never crossed my mind.
Yeah.
So having other DMs, having other people that you can go to is important, and I'm learning having a variety of people.
Yeah.
For the first almost year, my only D&D mentor played at my table, so
Yeah.
it's really hard to talk to him
Yeah.
about how to develop my plot.
Okay.
So yeah, I would definitely recommend other DMs.
Sure.
Especially, I'm
Yeah.
a big fan of.
As hard as it is for people who have our stigma, like the nerds who stay indoors, like make friends. That is 100% so necessary for life. It's real hard to kind of be in these situations without having some sort of support network.
Yeah, and it's super easy to get tunnel vision.
Yeah.
When you're the only voice of reason, you always sound, or you always seem
Yeah.
reasonable.
Yeah.
Sometimes it takes somebody else to say, maybe not so much. Maybe this was your fault. Maybe because
Yeah.
sometimes we're wrong.
That
and we just don't
that sounds
know
like
it.
maybe you had a humbling moment. Did you have a humbling moment where you had to say, like, maybe admit to your players that you were wrong?
I think a lot, and I think it comes in where they know the monsters better than I do. So I do a thing, and they're like, "That's not how this works." And I'm like, "But it is,
Yeah.
because it's my world." And they're like, "But we didn't know that." Like, oh, well,
Yeah.
that was very unfair of me. Let me, So I do a lot of, "Oh, that's my bad.
Yeah.
Do you want to go?" Had I told you the information that you were expecting me to tell you, would you have acted differently?
Okay.
Yes, I would have. Okay, well, let's go back here and replay the scenario
Yeah.
with better information. And
That's interesting. It's also something that's not very common at DM tables. Even for new DMs, most won't retcon on the fly like that. Because it feels like you're kind of getting railroaded at that point by your players. At least for me.
It definitely feels that way. And I'm
Does?
not always
Okay.
super happy about it.
Yeah.
But I have to remind myself that it's not me against my players. I
Good point. Very
started
good point.
this because I wanted people to have fun with me.
Yeah.
And if they're not having fun, why am I there?
Yeah.
You know, if I didn't want other people to be a part of my storytelling, I could just go write a book.
Yeah.
You know, so
And there is some things to be said for like kind of like a flavor of a game and flavor of like a particular group. For instance, I'm at the point now where I don't think I'm ever gonna run having to hunt for food again. Like I have Roanoke coming up. That's an entirely different thing because it's like how a city interacts together. But in an actual campaign, I made the mistake of trying again on this last one, and it was such a bad idea. Like I had to write rules, like rules that I didn't think about. There was a spell called Goodberry, where it just provides you food, and it's basically a cantrip or a first level spell, and like it's the same thing. It kind of takes the fun out of like getting your players to work for something and have to try to survive. So I'm right there with you. I wouldn't retcon like the situation, but I am at the point where I'm willing to retcon my rules of what I had laid out, because I did write like a booklet basically on like crafting and like on how to get potions, and most of that just felt like a chore to the players, and that's not what I'm here for. I'm not here to make something boring or uninteresting. I'm here really to have like the goofy bits and the challenge and like the fun, like getting past myself and into the fun. It was a bit of a challenge on this campaign.
No, I think I have something similar in that I have this big open world with all these different factions, and I was like, oh, they'll be able to explore as they wish.
Yeah.
And I've been hearing the last couple of weeks. I've been hearing more of, could you railroad us a little bit more? Like, no, then you won't be able to explore and make your own decisions and live with those consequences. It's this whole Game of Thrones power plays,
sure,
alliances, and they're like, could you just tell us where the next mission is?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, no, and the game has evolved. When we sat down, we thought we were going to play this game.
Yeah.
We ended up playing a different game.
Yeah.
And it's evolving into an entirely different game now. So players and DMs being able to accept those changes.
Right.
Like, hey, this is not where we started, but it's where we're going, and that's okay.
Yeah.
It is absolutely okay. But yeah, it sucks to be like, I have hours and hours and hours and weeks of months of works and plans, and I've got this thing, and they're like, yeah, but we don't want to do that. But you guaranteed to do that when you sat down at my table.
Which is a big trap for new DMs, as far as like doing like months of world building before you ever sit down. I hear this from time to time, and like people will start telling me about their pantheon that they're making and all the countries that they've made all the political rules for. I'm like, man, when you get into it, that's going to live in your head and your head alone.
I mean, it's wonderful if your players want to play there.
Yeah.
But you got to be willing to let it go. For your random treasure, for your item, I roll on a random table. So just because you found this magic scepter that does this, don't think that that's a plot hook. Oh, but I got this scepter. We got to go find out what the scepter means. It means I rolled a 7. I don't know what to tell you guys.
I mean, there is some opportunity to add some plot on the fly sometimes, and sometimes they're them like kind of honing in on an item. Like I'll be completely honest and like pull back the curtain for the people listening for a second. If I have a puzzle that's too hard and they decide on a solution, I will 100% let them have it. Like that's. I mean, you kind of have to just continue the story going forward. I have 6 hours to do 3 things. I have to get them through an RP opportunity, maybe a combat, maybe a puzzle, maybe some delving with traps or whatever. But I can only really accomplish 3 things in any one given setting. And you'll know your pacing before long too, I'm sure.
Yeah. Like I play a tight game. It's after work. We start at 6.
Yeah.
Everybody's already worked 8 hours.
Yeah.
We're done at 9. And if I'm more than 9:05, I feel bad. Like, I got a wife and kids, and I got places I gotta be. So
for sure.
So we got this time frame. Cool. Let's get into it. I had to give my player magic horseshoes. He's a centaur. So I gave him magic horseshoes so he could go up and down ladders.
Oh,
because it took an hour and a half for them to RP how they were getting the centaur up a ladder, when I clearly stated at the beginning of the encounter, or the thing, that these ladders are easily climbed by hooved animals. You won't have to worry about it. Still took them an hour and a half.
They wanted to goof off, and that's okay too.
It's like, fine. And he was making a point because I kept putting ladders. Like, well, you chose to be a centaur. Ladders exist in this world. I don't know what to tell you. So he was kind of making a point of, you're breaking my game. And I was like,
sure,
fine. Here,
please,
magic horseshoes that let you go up and down ladders.
You should really give him a rope next time. Just saying. Anyways, thank you so much for talking to me, Sam. I really appreciate it, man.
Thanks for listening to another episode of Sound Gaming Podcast. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter, like our page on Facebook, and subscribe to our podcast on YouTube. Links to where you can find us are available in the podcast show notes. Till next time.